When you haven't found love, it can feel like everyone else has. It's in every movie, every song, and all the PDA. Looking for love sucks. Thankfully, California Psychics can give you the guidance you need to find the one. We guarantee if your reading isn't life-changing, it's free. And new customers receive 20 minutes for just $20. Visit CaliforniaPsychics.com and experience the joy of certainty. California Psychics.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Unpacking Possibility. I'm your host, Traci Stein, as always. I'm so happy to be here with you. I was thinking today of talking about something that you might do all the time without ever thinking about it in this way. But after today, even normal daily activities, you might have a new take on, in a good way, I hope. And that is the idea of everyday activities being rituals of some sort. So you may say, well, what do you mean by that? Or what's a ritual? And we'll get into all of that today. But by the end of this episode, what I'd like you to do is not only think about the benefits that you might get from activities you do half on autopilot at this point, but also be able to recognize if some of your daily rituals may be things that you want to kind of reevaluate. Okay. So without further ado, what do I mean by ritual? So I would say in the most broad and basic sense, a ritual is a series of actions or behaviors, some sort of chain of behaviors that have meaning for us beyond the actual thing that we're doing, beyond the overt purpose of doing them. Because the series of behaviors or the chain or the collection of actions that we take in a very routine way, might even be in an automatic way, are imbued with some other meaning, maybe a deeper meaning. And it could even be a meaning that we're not fully conscious of. So here are some examples before I get too deep into this. But here are some examples of everyday rituals that people can derive some benefit from. So one would be cleaning. And some of you who are not cleaners maybe might say, I don't get that. But those of you who will bind your anxiety or feel like you're setting your day by vacuuming your home or cleaning your countertops or unloading the dishwasher first thing in the morning, and it's almost always in the morning, you'll know what I mean. Cleaning is both an important literal thing, of course, most people get that, but it's very symbolic too. We can feel like we're cleaning the clutter out of our minds or setting the tone for our day. We can feel like we're getting ready for our company to visit, the people we've invited over, and maybe cleaning helps us feel like, oh, okay, my house feels like I want it to be. I'm one of those people, full disclosure. But it also is a way of binding anxiety for a lot of people. It's very grounding for a lot of people. And if you're thinking, well, I don't really see how cleaning's a ritual, think about it. It is a multisensory experience. You are using various cleaning products that you probably use pretty consistently because you enjoy the smell, or the smell makes you think of something as cleaner, or maybe it is a cleaning product you grew up with and there's something comforting about it. But think about it. You're dusting your furniture, you're wiping off the dust, and you're putting everything you already own back in that place. And you're kind of taking care of it. You're taking care of your home, you're taking care of yourself in a way, because it can make us feel cleansed in a way. It's a process that we might do in a pretty similar way, or even in a pretty similar sequence, because we've probably been doing it for years and years. Now, you've heard of people saying, oh, if your home is messy or if your office is messy, your mind will be cluttered too. Or, people have made all kinds of connections. I don't think that's true for everybody, but I think for a lot of people, it is grounding. It does feel like a fresh start. It does make them feel like, okay, now I've done this and I can focus on my work. A lot of people cannot do that if they have stacks of paperwork or dust or there's a pile of laundry, and I get it. Again, disclosure, I'm one of those people. No one's perfect. My house isn't always perfectly clean. So I'm not saying that. But I think there's a reason why it is such a common ritual. And this will make you laugh, but my husband has his own cleaning rituals. They're very different from mine. And he certainly wouldn't say, I'm doing this because it is a ritual necessarily, but he's very consciously aware that in the morning, he usually gets up first. He goes downstairs. He unloads the dishwashers. He puts everything away. He has his classical music on, and then the coffee gets made. And then he reads some sort of, whatever book he's reading at the time for a little bit, and that's his quiet time. And then at some point we sit, we have coffee together. That's our catch-up time, another ritual, right? Food is often a part of rituals. Coffee is often a part of people's daily rituals. And again, there's a comfort that's attached to doing things in a certain way or with certain people or at certain times that makes them feel that much more powerful, even if they're not things that we think of as high impact. Having your morning coffee, however you have it, is a ritual. Chances are you're having it in the same place or you're picking it up from the same place. You're having it around the same time every day or most days. Chances are you are feeling calmer, even though coffee is a stimulant, right? Caffeine's a stimulant. But it might be that feeling that you get when you start your day. If you're the first person awake in your household, you may feel like this is my time, right? Especially if you have kids or if you have a really busy job. Lots of very successful people, people on various podcasts like Ed Milet and other people who've got top-rated shows talk about their morning rituals and what they do and the order they do it in and the things they don't do. So just as an example, I don't watch the show regularly, but I do find that a lot of what he says is pretty thought-provoking. But Ed Milet has said previously that he doesn't turn the TV on early in the morning. He doesn't look at his phone for the first, hour or whatever. His exercise routine is a part of his morning ritual, and it sets his day. So simple things, again, cleaning your home and getting it where everything feels like it's put in its proper place. A ritual that is grounding and relaxing for a lot of people, not everybody. Having your morning coffee. I used to know a very busy physician who had an hour-and-a-half drive to the hospital and would stop at the exact same rest stop on the highway to get his coffee before coming in. Now, there were a million other places he could have gotten his first cup of coffee, including at home or including at any of the coffee shops in the area or actually in the hospital. But it was very important to him halfway through his drive to get his coffee at this particular place. It was part of his setting and controlling some of his day. So as I'm sharing some of these examples with you, you may have thoughts about your own rituals or the rituals you have for your family. If you're a parent, you probably have created rituals for your children, right? Before bed at a certain time, maybe that's when your kids are supposed to go brush their teeth, but it might be at about the same time. Or you might say the same thing. All right, kids, it's time to go brush our teeth. Let's go. But it sets a kind of structure that can feel comforting, grounding, it's predictable. And a lot of our feeling comfortable and calm is having these little rituals. I think people who garden, that is another type of ritual. And actually, there's research showing that gardening in and of itself, but also being in nature generally, have health benefits and mental health benefits. But the thing is, when you're gardening, you're not watching TV. You're not getting overloaded with news, most likely. You are not usually engaging directly with other people. Even if somebody else is gardening with you, there's something kind of solitary about the task. I have a neighbor whose 80-something-year-old father still mows his own lawn because it is a calming ritual. This guy gets on his tractor. He owned a farm. I can't remember if he still owns the same farm, but he gets out there and that is how he sets his day. So we all have these things, but it can be an incredibly potent, yet so simple, deceptively simple way of decompressing. It's like meditation for people, whether or not they have a regular meditation practice. Another common ritual. Now, I don't know about you, but a lot of the people I follow on social media at this point are people doing their own home renovations or restorations. They're doing it themselves. They're stripping furniture. They're painting. They're showing hacks for doing these things yourself. And they post these videos and they're very compelling. If you watch this, you know what I mean. They're taking a room that looks really drab and they're hanging peel and stick wallpaper, and all of a sudden there's this incredible transformation. And maybe it only takes them a day or a few days. But as compelling as it is for us to see the transformation and vicariously enjoy what they have created, the improvement, they are getting something out of it probably beyond the monetary incentive from the algorithm on Instagram and things like that. Because I don't think you engage in things like that unless you really enjoy it. But psychologically, there is a component of a ritual to this whole thing, right? Because they're doing a room, they're completing the room, they're going and doing another room, or they're buying a piece of furniture for a great price, they're stripping it, and yeah, maybe they're selling it, but they're doing it again and again, and they could be doing something else. And many of you have probably noticed that it's oddly soothing to watch these people strip old layers of paint off of a beautiful piece of furniture. So I think some of it is also that the ritual represents improvement and transformation and gratification in a somewhat manageable amount of time, right? Especially for us just watching the video. But, you know, it's not going to take a year to strip an old dresser of paint and refinish it, one would hope. You can clean your home or a room in your home or clean your counter, right? Or unload the dishwasher or whatever it is in a pretty short amount of time, and everything kind of feels and smells and looks better. It's the same reason I think why people like watching makeovers on social media, where you see somebody go in and get their hair done. And it's this beautiful transformation in an hour or two. And we're seeing the 30-second condensed version. I think we all crave a few basic things. And I think these everyday rituals create space for them, or just they're a more easily accessible way to achieve these feelings. So the feeling is, one, control over our day, right? Most people feel somewhat better if they have a little bit of control over the early part of their day. And what I mean by that is not a vice grip on everything that happens, but they get to choose how they start their day. The second thing is time to ourselves. Now, there are people who can't tolerate much time to themselves, but most people need some degree of time to reset and recenter, whether that's reading a book or going for a jog, or artists who will go into their studio and paint. There's something gratifying about the creative aspect of that, about seeing and creating a transformation, a positive transformation, whether it's in ourselves or in some other object or space. But our minds get the symbolism of external transformation, because the symbol of external transformation, it represents internal transformation in many ways for most people. Now, I'm not saying every time you clean your home or have a cup of coffee or rip weeds out of your garden that you feel like this is the greatest thing. I feel so recentered. Sometimes things just feel like a chore, and it might be a chore you don't want to do, especially if, someone else is telling you, you better clean that bathroom or go mow the lawn. But I think you get where I'm going with this. And as somebody, again, who does hypnosis, where what is symbolic is incredibly powerful and it affects us on multiple layers, I can tell you that it makes sense to me that as we're pulling weeds out of the garden and then seeing that the garden looks neat and we can give our flowers or our vegetables a better chance at growing well, there is something very powerfully symbolic about that because, we might need to weed other things in our life, whether it's relationships with people who might feel like weeds. They might feel like they're there when we don't want them to be, or they're encroaching on our growth in some way, or it doesn't feel like a fit anymore. I know that might sound dramatic to some people, but think about it. It could be that we decide we're going to repaint a room in our home or change the curtains or, again, something mundane. And maybe we're also feeling like we need a change with our job, or we're thinking, is this the right location, the right, part of the world for me to live in or whatever. Our minds experience things on multiple levels at once, even if we are not entirely conscious of it at the time. And I think that's a good thing, right? If you're somebody who lives near a beach and you've ever gone for a swim and you've ever had a tough day and you've thought, all right, I just want to go dive into this water, even if it's for 5 minutes, that is symbolically very cleansing. And you might consciously, or if you haven't before, you might now think, I'm going to go do this and I'm going to leave the rest of my day behind me for now. And you dive into the water and the water washes over your skin and you're feeling much closer to weightless. So you might feel symbolically on some level like a weight is lifted off of your shoulder or just off of you in general. There are people who start their days with swimming, and I think this is part of it. I think it's beyond the physical exertion, which is, of course, part of it. Or somebody who goes for a morning walk or a morning jog and maybe catches a morning breeze, and that feels cleansing, and the jog feels grounding. But it does a lot for us psychologically, and I think the myth sometimes is that we need to do these dramatic things or these formal things or these very expensive things sometimes to give ourselves a reset. I don't think that's always true. Maybe sometimes. I know a lot of influencers. I think Mel Robbins has said this, but when you get out of bed in the morning, make the bed. If you're the last one out of bed, make the bed. And I get it. It's communicating something symbolic. And listen, no judgment if you don't make the bed every day. I don't. I'm admitting it. I would like to. So maybe that's a goal for me. I don't know if it's a goal for you. But I think you get where I'm going with this. Because we live in a world, and I've said this before, and this is a gross understatement, and you'll notice there are a lot of things I don't talk about explicitly on the podcast just because I feel like people are bombarded with so much. And I want to offer something helpful, but clearly there is so much going on in the world. Clearly, we are in a uniquely weird and stressful time. I mean, certainly the weirdest and most stressful one on a larger scale in my lifetime. For somebody else, it might feel different, but these simple daily rituals can be a lifeline for people. Aside from the other benefits that you get. And again, there are mundane benefits from jogging or walking or swimming or cleaning your home because it's a good thing to do, or repairing something in your home, or whatever else you're doing. If you're growing food, you should probably weed, even if you have a tiny little postage stamp size garden. It's something worth doing. How amazing that our minds are wired, our brains are wired to be able to benefit in more than one way and at a deeper level from the simple things we do. There's a few more kind of quick things. Holiday meals, type of ritual. If your family gets together in the same way every specific holiday, or they make the same foods. It's because those get-togethers and sitting at that table or using these linens or making these dishes evoke something beyond just the sustenance of the meal or the joy at seeing people. The ritual makes you think of things, and it evokes a level of comfort or nostalgia. Those rituals can help us feel connected to people who've passed away long ago. My grandparents passed away quite a while ago, and there were foods that if I saw them somewhere would instantly evoke feelings of warmth and connection. My grandparents always used to have nuts in a crystal bowl with, nuts with a nutcracker. And after the meal was done and everything was cleared, that bowl of nuts would come out. And it's like a strange thing for people whose families didn't do that. It probably sounds like, what? But that right away makes me think of them. And I don't have to do it myself. But if I went to somebody's house and saw that, it would instantly cultivate a very warm and nostalgic feeling inside of me. Right? But somebody baking the same things during the holidays. It's the smell. It's the coming together and maybe baking with somebody else. It's the specific things you're making. It's the stories that you remember when you're doing it. It brings you back to another time or the feeling of another time or another period of connection. An everyday ritual. And I'm saying everyday because it's pretty simple and normal and mundane. I don't mean that you're necessarily doing it every day. If your kids have gone off to college and when they come home, you make their favorite meal, same thing. When someone passes away and we go to their gravesite, it is a ritual. We're talking to that loved one and we feel a sense of connection. Now, I personally feel like we're connected to our loved ones all the time. But for people who do derive comfort from going to the gravesite of somebody they have lost, that is a ritual. It is a behavior that represents something more, because we know that the person is not literally talking back to us in a very earthly way if we go to the gravesite and we're talking to our deceased loved one, but it does cultivate a feeling of connection. To be honest, I actually think they know. I think we're always connected to them. But I understand why that ritual is really meaningful for a lot of people, and I understand why it's not for others. So these are just some things to think about. When we come back, because I've got to take a quick break, I'll talk about another everyday ritual or two, and you get where I'm going. But then we'll also talk about how we'll know if everyday rituals are no longer helpful, how to recognize that, and what we can do if that's the case. All right, I'll be right back. Stay tuned. So hi, everyone. Welcome back. I'm talking about everyday rituals and how they can be very psychologically powerful, even though they're deceptively simple and commonplace. Rituals like you're having your morning coffee the same time or with the same people or getting it from the same place every day. Why it feels so good to engage in the ritual of cleaning your home or your kitchen or whatever it is. Why you might need to get your exercise in a certain window of time every morning, or why it's the same thing, why holiday meals evoke so much, and why they're more than just a matter of serving food to people you care about. Rituals are powerful, and our brains are wired to make good use of them. And as I said before the break, it makes sense to me as somebody who does hypnosis, because our brains really do make good use of things that are symbolic. And as you probably know, because I feel like a lot of neuroscience stuff is commonplace these days, but you'll certainly have heard the term neurons that fire together, wire together. I know Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about that a lot, but a lot of people do, and it's true. And what that basically means is that your brain is wired to make stronger connections between things that get paired together again and again, right? So the more frequently you do one thing and associate it with another, and the more meaning it has for you, the more powerful that connection winds up being, right? And again, rituals, they're a series of, or a chain of behaviors. There's some sort of process that is what it is and might do something very concrete and mundane, but it also means something else. I'm going to tell you a funny one that I think is a ritual that a lot of people do. I remember going to my cousin's house and another relative of theirs was there and talking about how every year he gets super excited about Black Friday sales. So after Thanksgiving, he's driving home and he's getting ready to get to the parking lot of some store at the crack of dawn to get there for the mad rush, or getting ready to get there for doors opening at midnight or whatever it is. Now, that's something that wouldn't be a meaningful ritual for me, because that would be like, the last thing I want to do. I'd rather just not have the thing. But for him, it's exciting, and he's able to make his money go farther. He gets all of his gifts for his wife and kids, and it makes him feel like exhilarated and like he's won in a way, because he's getting something for a better price than he could get it any other time of the year. He's a teacher. He really needs to make his money go farther, and I completely get that. But I also get the feeling of participating in something that is a once a year thing. It's a type of ritual. It does a bunch of things for him. And if it does, I think that's great. My husband did the polar bear plunge, a completely different type of ritual. He did it twice. He'll never do it again because I think it might be dangerous at this point. But he went to the beach and jumped in freezing cold water on New Year's Day. Now, again, something I would do, not a chance. And I asked him why anybody would do that. And I think he felt like he had demonstrated to himself that he could do anything, or like that he had overcome what would normally be extremely uncomfortable. There was something exhilarating. There's something exhilarating about doing it with hundreds or even thousands of other people, right? There's something like a feeling of triumph. He's also somebody who's run marathons. So I get that there is that exhilaration from seeing what your body can do, and all the other reasons why people do any of those things. But it's a type of ritual. It means something more than just jumping in cold water or running 26.2 miles. So as I said before the break, I want to talk about times when it might not be so healthy to be in the pattern or in the rut of the rituals that you have maybe been, I don't want to say clinging to, but when we become so dependent on a ritual that it is no longer good for us, but we can't stop doing it, then you know that it's worth taking a look at or maybe getting some help. Oftentimes people will not want to, and I get it. And it's nearly impossible to make somebody go get help for something that they think is good and you think is not. And you might be right. So that's just going to be my little disclaimer there, because I can't help you if, your sister is a cleaning freak to the point that she can't leave the house because she's cleaning all day, every day, re-cleaning the same things. That's a sign of something that isn't great. And the golden rule of whether something is no longer good for you is it not good for you? It's the downside of doing it in the way you're doing it, something that creates a significant cost for you. A cost to your mental health, a cost to your social functioning, a cost to your ability to hold a job, and so forth. A cost to your health. So I'll give you an example. And if this person listens to my podcast, I'm going to apologize and just say, I'm saying this with love. By the way, I wouldn't be the 10th person to say I think this might be an issue. So, but please know, I'm not coming from a horrible place of judgment. It's just more a thing like we all have our stuff, and sometimes our stuff gets a little out of control. This is one of those situations where I think it might not be the greatest, but long story short, someone I know and have known for a very long time Everybody used to joke about what a clean freak she was. And remember, a lot of the things that we do compulsively, there might be this kind of benefit to our ego, right? What does it mean to be the cleanest person anybody knows? And she would qualify. She's one of the two people I would say, I can't imagine a cleaner place. And being clean is profoundly important to her. The problem is, or one of the problems is, I know for a fact, and she would say it, is this person kind of thinks of everybody else as super dirty, which makes it really hard to interact with people in general. So she doesn't get a lot of social interaction outside of her own home. She gets anxious when people come to her home. This is somebody who, when people use the bathroom in her home, immediately afterwards, she will go in and alcohol the toilet seat. I'm not making this up. So I think you can see where I'm going with this. It's now one of those things where I'm not sure if I could have put a finger on where it became problematic. But just as an example, this is somebody who is probably spending more time in their own home than might be healthy by most people's definitions, because the outside world is seen as unhealthy or dirty. And listen, the outside world, there are lots of things that are dirty. Not everybody has the same kind of health behaviors or standards. I get it. I can understand her thought process. But when her own family comes over to eat a meal, and these are clean people, by the way, these are not dirty people by any means, she can't finish a conversation after they've used the bathroom because she's got to get up and open up an alcohol swab, one of those alcohol wipes, and wipe down that toilet. Some of you are saying, oh God, I wish I didn't tune into this episode, right? Because it's kind of a weird image. But you can see that even if we don't talk about occupational costs, right? Because it's very hard to go to a job if you're terrified of germs or you can't use a public bathroom ever under any circumstance, right? Can't really be at work for 8 hours or even 5. People feel understandably offended if you are anxious about the quote dirt that they're bringing into your home, and they're pretty clean people. So looking at the costs. Now, the person may or may not perceive these things as a cost in the same way that an average observer would, right? And those are things that are really hard to change. Sometimes people get a sense that I know this is a problem, but I can't stop, or I don't want to stop. I'm not ready. It is what it is. But many of you have probably heard of the term obsessive compulsive disorder. I also kind of want to clear up what that means technically. Obsessions are the thoughts. So, oh my God, I can't sit still because so-and-so is in my home and their shoes tracked in so many germs, or so-and-so touched this glass and now I feel like I'll never be able to use that drinking glass again. And, so it's the thoughts, and they're repeated and often intense and often somewhat distorted, certainly in terms of the meaning of things. And the compulsions are the behaviors. They're the things you feel you have to do because the feeling inside of you is overwhelming. So another example of that would be, you're late to work more days than not, because even if you try to leave early, you've got to go back in the house a few times to check the stove, make sure all the burners are off. Now, do I think it's bad to check burners before you leave the house, especially if you've been cooking or if you have an old stove? No, check the burners if you want, totally fine. But if you are finding that you're leaving and coming back, or you're checking repeatedly, or you've got to tap the burners, the knobs a certain number of times, and so forth, you get where I'm going with this. If you have to wash your hands so frequently throughout the day that now your skin is falling apart because it's cracked and it's red or it's inflamed and worse, that's how you know a good thing. the ritual of washing your hands after you go to the bathroom, or maybe when you come in from the outdoors, or you've been on public transit and before you make your food or touch your face or whatever, you want to wash your hands. That's a good thing gone bad because it's out of proportion. When you can't deviate from the ritual, or there are thoughts that are overwhelming that accompany the ritual, it's not really healthy. I think you get it. So what can we do if that's the case? I mean, if it's somebody you love, you have to talk with them. And if you have your own mental health provider, that's something for people to work out individually, strategies for speaking to a loved one. That's beyond what we can really get into on this podcast. But if you're that person and you're like, I feel compelled to do this, and the anxiety feels like too much if I don't do it, and I can't stand it, even though it causes all these other problems when I do this kind of compulsive ritual, then what I would say is find a good person, see somebody who specializes in working with obsessive compulsive disorder or OCD or anxiety disorders. That's what you'd look for. Please look for a qualified mental health professional near you, or who's qualified to do telehealth with you even, and so forth. Sometimes people will need medication, sometimes they won't. But a good person can, working with you over time, help you to align yourself and be an ally to the part of you, even if it's only 2%, that sees this as a problem and wants to make change. So I highly encourage people to find somebody near you if you're struggling with a ritual that is no longer adaptive. But just bringing it full circle again, most rituals that we do on an everyday basis are comforting, grounding, fairly benign. Most of the time, we're probably doing them on autopilot. But from this moment on, you can notice the things that are part of your routine that feel helpful. And you can have a greater sense of why they might be helpful. And in doing so, you can really engage in them even more mindfully. You can also give yourself a break if you feel like, you know what? I like getting coffee at this specific place every day. I like seeing the same people serving me my coffee. I like having it the same way around the same time. It's my time to reset. Or I like getting up early before my family's up so I can have my morning quiet time. And it's worth getting up at, 5 a.m. Great. If it's tending to your garden or going for a walk or a jog or making sure that you have Sunday dinner with your family or monthly Sunday dinner or whatever it is, notice the rituals that feel grounding and helpful. Notice what they do for you. And notice if there are any other health behaviors that you would like to put into practice, good habits, and so forth, that could also become helpful and healthful rituals to help you feel, do, and live better overall. So that's it. I'll be curious to see what you think. As always, I really enjoyed this time with you. And until next time, of course, be well.